हेलो दोस्तों, दिस इज भारत कुमार एंड यू आर वाचिंग माय चैनल निर्मल इन्फो अपडेट्स।
Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left.
The Daulat Oldy, DBO, airstrip in eastern Ladakh, which is currently being used in the ongoing dispute with China, was reactivated by the Indian Air Force, IAF, in May 2008 without taking written permission from the center, said former Vice Chief Air Marshal, retired, Bharat Kumar. One of the highest advanced landing grounds at an altitude of over 16,800 feet, DBO airstrip can be used for landing aircraft like the AN-32 and a C-130J Super Hercules. The retired Vice Chief Air Marshal said there was nothing in writing about reactivating the airstrip, which is why the government was informed through proper channel only after the landing was done and after he returned from there. IAF's responsibility to maintain the troops' logistics. When asked about the center's reaction, Berber said, "The government asked why you did it. We said it is the Air Force's responsibility to maintain troops' logistics." He also said that the Chinese wanted to hold discussions when the airstrip was reactivated through a flag meeting, but despite India agreeing to it, they never came to discuss it. An online poll has revealed that most Indians prefer US President Donald Trump over Chinese President Xi Zing Ping. The poll was conducted across 13 languages and involved all Network 18 digital and social news platforms. News 18, Money Control, First Post and CNBC TV 18, and concluded that 91% of the respondents were in favor of a boycott of Chinese products. The boycott sentiment is the strongest among Marathis, 97%. At least 72% of the respondents said they will not buy anything Chinese if they can. 23% are willing to cut down on purchases of Chinese goods. Only 4% say they would still want to buy Chinese products. The poll, with 21 questions, received 31,000 responses in total and was carried out for 4 days. Among Indian communities, Xi's ratings are higher than average among Malayalis and Urdu speakers. On the other hand, Marathi and Odia respondents like Trump the most and Xi the least, 98% versus 2%. Close to 94% of the Indians believe China has been dishonest in its handling of the coronavirus crisis. In case of China's conflict with another world power, 74% respondents want India to side against Beijing, but 51% of those from Tamil Nadu and 52% from Punjab want India to stay neutral in such a conflict. 88% of the respondents do not want Chinese companies to build 5G infrastructure in India. 87% of Indians do not want more Chinese investment in the country. However, Indians largely remain undecided upon reconsidering India's friendly approach towards China. 53% are in favor while 47% opted for a no. Additionally, Indians across all languages uniformly believe that China is a strong supporter of Pakistan. 80% of Indians see China as an unfriendly or very unfriendly nation. Only 3% believe China is friendly. 70% Indians fear that a military conflict between India and China might take place. However, 56% Malayalis do not agree. 61% of respondents see China's actions as that of an enemy state. Exceptions are Gujaratis, Tamilians and Malayalis, who believe China is merely posturing. In all, 84% of the respondents don't have a favorable view of China. And online characterizing defense and strategic engagement between New Delhi and Canberra as the cornerstone of the slew of agreements signed during virtual summit between Prime Ministers Narendra Modi and Scott Morrison, Australian High Commissioner to India Barry Farrell on Saturday said the bilateral ties go beyond what took the spotlight. Elaborating in the light of first ever such summit on Thursday, High Commissioner Farrell said besides defense and strategic issues, 2 other pillars of the engagement include reviewing the strength of international institutions to serve the countries and the world, the resilient economy, and step up in the political understanding between the 2 leaders. There is a desire on both sides to establish a strong and reliable supply chain business, having learnt the lesson from what the world has seen in the recent time, he said, taking part in buying our India-Australia partnership in the Indo-Pacific region organized by think tank India Foundation along with his Indian counterpart Gich Sarma. While defense cooperation was being stepped up with India and Australia signing logistics supply agreement, the Indian envoy said as trust and understanding grows, New Delhi feels there are specific areas that can reflect new levels. For instance, taking security dimensions, Australian companies prefer to give contracts in information technology to the US that in turn subcontracted to Indian companies. This could change with greater understanding. Australia, the High Commissioner, said advocates a free and open Indo-Pacific that is inclusive and for economic prosperity according to rules and not pursuing might as right as is being seen. As for Quad, he said it is a useful forum to coordinate in areas in which members agree. On his part, High Commissioner Sarma said the geopolitical situation for Australia is different from India. On access to rare minerals, and High Commissioner Farrell said India wants to use it to manufacture electric vehicles and Australia could be a reliable source to support it. On superfunds, he said, executives connected with these investors have been analyzing the situation and doing their own research, stating that post-COVID May 19 require calibration in approach. The scenario wherein India is engaged with its traditional opponent in the western sector and the Red Dragon opens up the eastern front, or vice versa, is a sticky wicket to play on. Questions have been asked, war games have been played and strategies have been built around this scenario to get a feel and predict the requirements so as to be prepared for exercise in future. If an analysis of the probable situation is to be done, the first item needing attention is the reality and the efficacy of a two-front war. Is it possible to have one, and how effectively can the opponent run the campaign? Yes, a two-front war is a definite possibility in the Indian context. Nevertheless, the war envisaged would be very difficult to coordinate and execute by the opponents. The worst-case scenario for India is both the western as well as eastern fronts being attacked simultaneously, thus forcing her to divide the war efforts. Any more coordinated effort by the enemies would require centralized command and control structures, aka WW-2, which is envisaged not to be a possibility in the present situation. Thus, bereft of centralized command, the efficacy of a two-front attack and maintenance of the aim is diluted, giving India the edge. For India, it would now mean breaking down the war into three distinct major geographical theaters, namely the West Theater, encompassing the borders and sea we share with Pakistan, the North Theater, encompassing the border regions at Ladakh down south to the northwestern edge of Nepal, and the Northeastern Theater, encompassing border regions from the southeast of Nepal to all the way up to Arunachal and further down towards the south. The border regions of Nepal, approximately 500 kilometers, and that of Myanmar to the far east, is expected to be left off the main battle. This sounds rather rosy, but in actuality would be a Herculean task for the centralized war room at Delhi to handle. Air power, which paves the way for all modern campaigns, need to match up to the challenges on all three fronts. Interestingly, in the context of traditional air warfare, Pakistan stands at a better position to threaten India than China would. Adequacy of air bases all along the border and a tight network of air defense system provide Pakistan just the required platform for an ideal offensive and subsequent defense. China, whereas, all along its area of interest, lacks adequate air bases. The few they have are at very high altitudes, penalizing the takeoff requirements and all-up-way performance. The play would have to be broken down to at least 4 elements along the entire border, and reaching the Indian assets, overflying Nepal or Myanmar, would not only involve international complexities but also the use of multiple air refueling for every mission. However, on its plus side, China has a robust long-range air defense for most of its bases and vital points, not to forget its wide battery of second artillery corps. These missiles could and would prove a threat to India. China has an arsenal of 2,500 plus, the surface-to-surface missiles of varying ranges and CEP, circular air of probability, with conventional warheads, which it would most certainly use against India in the opening wave. However, it needs to be said for IAF that a little care, planning and distribution of assets would render this threat to mostly a nuisance value, in the face of the enormity of the situation. Civilian targets addressed by these missiles are not being considered here, nor are nuclear warheads. It would be sacrilege to put in actual calculations involving range, warheads, CEP, target diversity and a few other factors on an open platform. However, it is safe to say the IAF has adequate depth and diversity to nullify the effect of the Chinese SSBM, surface-to-surface ballistic missiles, rain. The logistics for it and the actual execution would no doubt be a massive task. The government-approved fighter squadron strength for the IAF is 42.5 squadrons, of which the existing number of squadrons are in the 30s. The air defense element is undergoing a revamp and looks pretty potent. Notwithstanding, for a two-front war this element requires a rather large boost, especially for enemy targets of interest, not within a military zone. Gone are the days of base defense only, it's time for air defense umbrella for larger areas. India's missile force also needs work to be done and, at present, is in a very juvenile state, a shade better than Pakistan's. In conventional warfare, however, the SSBMs don't really push much weight except for a few tactical ones, which could shape the immediate battlefield. The lift capability of the IAF, in the present state, is rather envious. During the last X-Kagan in 2018 and related events of the time, the IAF had demonstrated this capability to the envy of our neighbors. Interestingly enough, heavy lift capability of the IAF has increased since.